Liam Foster was everything a small-town high school could ask for. Athletic, charismatic, and a leader on the football field. At just 17, he had already earned the reputation of being the star quarterback. And with his quick reflexes and sharp football IQ, he was destined for greatness. His father, a former college football star, had always pushed him to excel, and Liam felt the weight of those expectations every time he stepped onto the field. But there was a darker side to Liam, one that few knew about. Beneath the confident exterior was a young man struggling with emotions he couldn't quite understand, emotions that kept him up at night. There was one person, though, who seemed to know how to calm his restless soul: Coach Ryan Andrews. Coach Andrews, 36, had been the school's football coach for nearly a decade. He was a former college football player himself, and his powerful presence made him both admired and feared by the team. His strict discipline and tough love approach to coaching had led the team to multiple championships. But no one suspected the underlying tension between him and his star player. Liam had always looked up to Coach Andrews. The coach was a father figure to him, guiding him on and off the field. But what started as mentorship soon morphed into something more complicated and dangerous. The bond between coach and player grew more intense, more personal, and eventually crossed boundaries that would lead to a tragic end. It all began one late afternoon after practice. Liam, having missed a pass earlier in the game, was staying late to go over the plays with Coach Andrews. The air was thick with humidity, and the sound of the coach's whistle echoed in the empty stadium. What started as an innocent discussion about tactics soon turned into something that neither of them could control. It wasn't long before the relationship between Liam and Coach Andrews became more than just professional. What began as simple moments of physical closeness, a hand on Liam's shoulder after a game, an extra pat on the back, slowly turned into something more forbidden. At first it felt innocent. It was just a couple of quiet moments in the locker room, a lingering gaze here and there. Liam, confused but intrigued, didn't know how to process the emotions swirling within him. He had grown up in a conservative town where homosexuality was a topic rarely discussed, and he didn't have the language to express what he was feeling. But with Coach Andrews, there was a certain comfort, a kind of connection he had never felt with anyone before. The lines blurred over time. The after-practice talks became more intimate. Coach Andrews began offering advice that went beyond football, about life, relationships, and the expectations that weighed on Liam's shoulders. They started meeting privately, away from the watchful eyes of the team, in secluded spots around the school grounds. One evening, after the team had left for the night, the two of them met in the coach's office, the door locked behind them. There, in the shadows of a deserted school, they crossed a line neither would ever be able to uncross. It was more than just a moment of weakness. It became an affair. They kept their relationship hidden from the world, knowing the consequences of discovery would be catastrophic. But in the secrecy, in the darkness of their meetings, the affair intensified. Liam's feelings for Coach Andrews became confused, and what began as desire evolved into obsession. As the weeks passed, the relationship between Liam and Coach Andrews grew increasingly complicated. Liam began to lose focus on his football career. He was distracted, torn between his love for the game and his feelings for his coach. He started withdrawing from his teammates, who noticed the change in him, but attributed it to the pressure of upcoming championship games. Coach Andrews, too, seemed more distant, his actions more unpredictable. He was still the strong, confident leader on the field, but at times there was an underlying sadness in his eyes. A guilt, perhaps, or fear of what would happen if their secret came to light. Then there was Jenna, Liam's longtime girlfriend, who began to sense that something was wrong. She noticed Liam's sudden mood swings, his inability to connect with her emotionally, and the late nights he spent alone, often excusing himself with vague explanations. Jenna had been with Liam through thick and thin, but something was changing. She didn't know what, but she could feel the distance growing between them. One day, Jenna confronted Liam. "You've been acting strange lately," she said, her voice a mix of concern and frustration. "I don't know what's going on, but it feels like you're pushing me away. What's happening?" Liam was silent. He didn't know how to explain the chaos inside him. The guilt, the shame, the love, all mixed up in a knot he couldn't untangle. He avoided her question, offering an empty excuse, but deep down, he knew the truth. He had fallen into something he could never escape. The tension between Liam and Coach Andrews reached a breaking point during the championship game. The team was on the verge of winning, and Liam was playing the best game of his life. But something wasn't right. His thoughts kept drifting, not to the game, but to the coach, to their secret, to the consequences of what they had done. After the game, during the celebrations, Jenna cornered Liam in the locker room. Her face was flushed with anger and hurt, her eyes wide with the suspicion that had been building for weeks. She had seen the way Liam looked at Coach Andrews, the way they spoke to each other with a closeness that went beyond coaching and football. "Liam, tell me the truth," Jenna demanded. "What's going on between you and Coach?" The truth poured out, a confession of guilt, desire, and fear. Jenna was devastated. She had suspected something, but hearing it from Liam's lips was worse than anything she could have imagined. She fled the locker room, her heart broken and her trust shattered. But that wasn't the end of it. As Jenna left, she ran into a few of the other players, including Brandon, one of Liam's closest friends on the team. Brandon, hearing the heated argument, pieced together the rest. He confronted Liam in the parking lot, demanding answers. Liam was trapped. His affair with Coach Andrews had been discovered, and the pressure was mounting. But what came next was far more sinister. The days following the discovery of the affair were filled with tension. Liam tried to reach out to Jenna, but she refused to speak to him. Coach Andrews, too, had grown distant. He knew that their secret was about to be exposed, and the consequences could ruin everything. His career, his life. On the evening of the school's end-of-year banquet, Liam met Coach Andrews in the locker room one last time. They spoke in hushed tones, both aware that the clock was ticking. They couldn't keep hiding. The weight of the secret was too much, but neither could face the fallout. In the heat of the moment, emotions ran high. Words were exchanged, accusations, confessions, desperation. In the intensity of the confrontation, a struggle ensued. Coach Andrews, in a moment of blind rage, pushed Liam against the locker, knocking him unconscious. But it didn't stop there. In his panic, Coach Andrews grabbed a nearby weight and, in a violent fit of frustration and fear, struck Liam across the head. Liam fell to the ground, blood pouring from his skull. It was too late for a second chance, too late for apologies. The damage had been done. Coach Andrews stood over him, breathing heavily, realizing too late the horrific consequences of his actions. The next morning, the locker room was silent. Liam's body was discovered, lifeless and cold, by one of the early arriving staff members. The news spread like wildfire. The star quarterback had been murdered, and the coach was nowhere to be found. Detective Claire Davis was assigned to the case. A seasoned investigator with a sharp mind, Claire quickly pieced together the details of the case. She began by interviewing Jenna, who revealed the affair. Jenna was heartbroken and angry, but she was also afraid. She knew the implications of what had happened, and now the entire town would know the truth. As the investigation deepened, Claire uncovered the secret relationship between Liam and Coach Andrews. She questioned Coach Andrews, who initially denied any involvement in the murder. But Claire's keen instincts told her otherwise. The pressure built, and soon Coach Andrews broke down. He confessed to the crime, explaining how everything had spiraled out of control. The trial was a media circus. The affair between the coach and his star player was exposed to the world, and the small town of Maple Ridge was rocked to its core. The town, once proud of its football team, now found itself questioning everything, from the integrity of the sport to the safety of its young athletes. Coach Andrews was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 15 years in prison. But the real tragedy lay in the loss of two lives: Liam Foster's, whose future had been cut short, and Coach Ryan Andrews, whose career and personal life were destroyed by a moment of rage. The murder of Liam Foster by his own coach serves as a chilling reminder of the consequences of crossing boundaries and hiding dangerous secrets. What began as a simple mentor-student relationship turned into a forbidden affair, ultimately leading to tragedy. In the end, both Liam and Coach Andrews paid the price, one with his life, the other with his freedom. The whistle had been blown, but the game was over.